What's up, gamers? It's your boy, JKon. Welcome to another video. With Masters Madrid about to kick off, I thought it'd be fun to power rank every single player going to the event, ranking them amongst their specific roles. Now, this is a subjective ranking, so of course I could be right and I could be wrong. So if you think I'm right or wrong, let me know down below in the comments, as I would love to hear what you guys have to say. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Please like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz, as it helps me out a lot, and I very much appreciate it. Now, without further delay, let's get into it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we have a standard tier list breaking down 1 through 8. This is my tier list on how I would rate each player in their individual role. Now, if they are a flex player and play multiple roles, which we'll see has caused some kind of issues with certain teams, I will be ranking them based on their play primarily within that role. So for example, if Tens puts up amazing numbers, he also plays KO and Yoru outside of the Omen, so I will be grading him based off of his Omen play more so than his other plays, if that makes sense. Let's go on with the Duelist. So for the Duelist, I have at number 8 Magnet. Unfortunately, even though he has been the new pickup and I had a lot of hopes for him, he has been underperforming and not really gelling super well with Paper Rex completely yet coming into the new year. He looks a little disconnected, especially going in, and although I know they want him to play like himself, it's very difficult to, as he is filling very large shoes. So unfortunately for me, I think he might be the weakest Duelist coming into this event. At number 7, I have QCK. Now, QCK is an interesting Duelist to rank because yes, he is very important to make Loud system work, running the Phoenix within their triple flash team comp, and he is the tip of the spear for them. But unfortunately for me, I didn't think he was performing that well, and he kind of got overshadowed by other Duelists in the region. Yes, it helps that he has such a solid team around him, but overall I didn't think he was performing at the highest levels as he could have in the Duelist role. At number 6, I have Autumn. Now, Autumn is the Duelist from FPX. He, of course, is the Australian import player. You know, OCE represent, the first OCE player on an international event, I think. Ronsky was on the GE roster, but he did not play at lock-in. So I believe Autumn is the first OCE player to represent at an international event. So you know what? Go Autumn. I actually think he's a very good Duelist player. Just unfortunately, Duelist is one of the most stacked roles coming into this event, as we obviously saw from my top 10 list. If you have not seen my top 10 list, go check it out after watching this video. I think it's pretty good. Anywho, Autumn himself is a very good Duelist player, has been also one of the progenitors of Phoenix, has been playing it as well in certain maps like Sunset for FPX, and overall I just think he's a solid Duelist in the middle of the pack, I guess, if you consider that the middle of the pack. At number 5, might be kind of controversial, but I have Martine. Although Martine is really good and kind of just like the standout player for KC, tip of the spear, I love this rookie. His energy is infectious, his aggressiveness is insane. Just him double satchelating in with a shorty when he has a rifle is just so common that he does it so consistently. Just his absolute aggression is super fun to watch. I think he's an amazing Duelist player, can easily climb the ranks after this event. We'll have to see, but for me right now he places 5th. At number 4, I have ChocoChip. Now, ChocoChip is, in my opinion, the best opper in the world. When you give him that gun, he is just uber consistent with it, continue to make highlight plays with it, and it's just a great opping player. He's also the main tip of the spear for EDG, but has also been willing to switch roles with Smoggy if Smoggy wants to play Duelist as well. Overall, I still love ChocoChip. He's got that superstar factor to him. He's quite consistent, even though his consistency consists of his consistent mistakes and overheating, but nonetheless, I still love him, and right now he's ranked 4th on this list for me. In 3rd place, I have Miniboo. Now, Miniboo is what I would call a player that thrives in chaos. He is absolutely absurd, and his team completely supports and sets him up to have a chaotic environment in which he thrives. One thing to keep an eye out for him is his Neon. He is very good at Neon, and just the way he aggressively takes space with that agent is incredible, and he has the firepower to back it up. My man can definitely shoot and click heads, and he has been putting up absolute numbers. I believe there's a statistic that was saying that he is one of the best, if not the best, statistical player right now, and that is absurd. Definitely keep an eye out for this player because he is incredible. Number 2 on my list, I have Texture of Gen G. Although I have been praising the rookies, one of the things that we have to say is that Texture has been absolutely stepping up as a veteran of the scene. He has been putting up absolute numbers, being the huge carry for Gen G. I believe he's only had one kind of poor series throughout all the series that they've played so far, and Texture has been their best player by far. He's been putting absolute numbers. The way he works in tandem with his team is incredible, and he just is an absolute demon on the board, and I just love seeing him back. And he's been one of the bigger users of the Outlaw, and I think that's really good. And this should be no surprise. At number 1, I have JKon. So JKon, of course, I think is the best duelist player in the world right now. His game sense is through the roof. His mechanics, of course, are extremely good, as he is able to just absolutely fry people and put up numbers. He was number 1 or number 2 in pretty much every statistical category amongst duelists in the Americas. And in my opinion, the Americas is probably one of the strongest regions that we got. Overall, I just think this kid is on fire. And now that he finally has a good team that is able to support him and set him up, we're really truly seeing his work come to fruition. It's amazing. Okay, let's go to the flex section here. So for flex at number 8, unfortunately, although he has been playing incredibly well, is such an integral part of their system, has to learn so many lineups. It's unfortunately Pat. Patty has been the stand-in for Team Heretics, taking the place of Woot, who unfortunately will not be of age yet. I believe his birthday is in like a couple weeks or something. But Pat will be playing at Madrid, earning the spot, of course, playing very well. I think Patty has been incredibly consistent for them. His KO has been super integral for all of their takes, whether that's creating space, pop flash plays for Mini Boo, flashing for himself. There's so many lineups that he has had to have, and so many different set plays that Team Heretics runs, and a lot of it is integral and based off of his KO play. He has been a solid rock for them, maybe not putting up the best numbers, but he has been incredibly important for their system. But unfortunately, head to head against the other flexes, he ranks 8th. At number 7, I have Magnum. Now this one might be a little weird. Some people would say like, oh, why isn't Magnum in the Sentinel / Anchor role? The reason for that is in Carmine Core, Tomazi has been basically perma Viper or Omen. The only Sentinel time that they are running it is if they decide to have a Sentinel on the map, which Magnum will flex to, but Magnum will also play initiators for this team along with narrate. So I decided to put Magnum more in the flex, as I felt that Tomazi was more of the anchor player. Overall, Magnum has had really good performances and really poor performances. Of course, his 0-15 against Team Heretics will go down in infamy a little bit, but nonetheless, I still think he is a very good player. He's been able to be the voice of Aang on the server and leading these young guns quite well. But again, very similar to Pat, although he's integral to the system, comparatively to other flex players, he's not as impressive. Going on to number 6, I have Sadak. Now this is purely just for performance, not taking into account IGL and like all those cogs and all those other systems. This is just how they're playing as the flex player. I think Sadak has actually had kind of a poor performance in regards to putting up numbers. His calls and his strats have been pretty good for the most part, and Loud have been looking really good in a dominant team, as they usually do. But Sadak's form has slipped a little bit, and he's had a few games where he has not been fragging or frying as much. Nonetheless, still as a flex player that has pretty much played every agent in the game, I can't really doubt him too much, so that gives him a little bit of an edge over the other two. At number 5, I have Munchkin. One of the things that I gotta say for Munchkin is that his Viper play has been very good. He's been the main Viper player for Gen G. He is also the IGL. He's been putting up pretty good numbers, and he's been very clutch for them, and has had a lot of situations where his lurks and his ability to create space has given advantages for his team in order to rotate or take a timing or whatnot. But overall, I think Munchkin has been performing quite well, and he's been on a bounce back from getting kicked from T1 last year. But overall, Munchkin pretty solid, middle of the pack. Above Munchkin, I have Smoggy. Now Smoggy, for me, as I said in my top 10 video, go check it out again if you haven't watched it, but for me, Smoggy is EDG's X factor, and he has given them so many rounds. Like, Smoggy wins them so many random absurd rounds. He's also extremely clutch for them. He's extremely flexible, and honestly, if Smoggy performs well, EDG performs well. And overall, like, I'm just a really big fan of him, so 4th place for Smoggy. At number 3, I have Zelsis. So Zelsis, I know I said the other like cog factors aren't as much of a factor into this, and this is a little hypocritical as to why I'm putting Zelsis in here, but I think Zelsis, yes, he may not be the strongest fragger on his team, he still is incredibly useful. His ability to play multiple agents and kind of work in tandem with 10s, able to cover the agents that 10s is not able to, and being the main kind of socket key. I know I said I wouldn't do it, but like he's the main reason why I think Sentinels have had such a big turnaround since forming this new roster, and he's been playing quite well. I think there are obviously better Viper players than him. There's obviously better Breach players than him, but nonetheless, I still think he is a very good player, and he ranks 3rd on my list. At number 2, I don't know why I said it like that, I have FPX Life. Life just plays a bunch of different roles. He's been mainly flexing between Jet, Yoru, and Chamber, which is kind of different than all the other flexes, so it's kind of hard to rank this category. But overall, I still think Life has brought a lot of firepower to this FPX squad, and he continues to allow them to play their funky, unique style, and slotting in his agent pool has been very good. He's also been FPX's 2nd best player throughout the year, if not their best player, depending on if you regard Autumn as their best player. But nonetheless, I still think Life is extremely good, and he's underrated in my opinion as a player that has been integral to bringing 3 different rosters to international events. That's gotta be a mark for something. So right now, he's number 2. And last but not least, for flexes, I have Forsaken, the king of flexes. Of course, Forsaken can play literally every agent in the game. He's extremely creative with his agents. His performance almost never drops off when he switches agents or switches roles, and he's just the best flex player in my opinion. So he's number 1. Going on to the Initiator players. At number 8, I have Lakia. Although Lakia is extremely important for his team, he's had really good calls, has made a lot of clutch moments, and has just been really good at helping set up Texture to have a lot of impact. In terms of comparatively to the other Initiators, his numbers weren't as high for me, and although he is really important to his team compared to the other Initiator players who you'll see end up in this category, it's kind of difficult to rate him higher. At number 7, I have Rienz, a rookie that I am super high on. I'm very excited to see him come and play on LAN. Of course, he hasn't been able to play with his team since he's been playing remote from home, but he will be there on LAN at Madrid. I think he's incredible. I think his utility usage is very good. I think the set plays that he goes off of with Pat is extremely useful, and again, a lot of their set plays cannot be done without their Initiator players. But overall, I think some of the other Initiator players have just been putting up bigger numbers than him, so he ranks 7th. At 6th place, we have EDG's Nobody. Nobody surprisingly has changed his play style coming into this new year. No more like solo lurking, pushing random things. He's been playing with the pack a lot, and overall, he's actually been putting up big numbers. I actually think he's had, if you look at numbers purely, I think he's EDG's 2nd highest performing player right now, and he's been sharp. His form has been pretty good, and he's been playing smarter. So overall, got to give credit to him and making progress with his gameplay. 5th place, I have Kawanzin. Now, this is just purely off of their tournament so far. We all know that Kawanzin is a world-class player. He really developed into that last year after, you know, being a rookie and whatnot. But I think he kind of had a poor performance throughout kickoff. He wasn't playing at his normal numbers. He has basically switched to like full-time Breach, which is really interesting. And I think the switch might be harming him a little bit. So overall, I put him 5th. In 4th place, I have FPX's Ayang. And for me, Ayang is absolutely frying. I mean, if you want to talk about the 3 FPX players that we have put up so far, I would argue that Ayang might be the most important player. Although the Duelists have been playing quite well, Ayang has been absolutely frying, man. Like, this guy has been continuing his form from last year where he was absolutely insane. He's been playing Gecko, Sky, just the standard Initiators, and he's looking pretty good. So for me, give him 4th place. 3rd, we have Saucy. So Saucy actually has picked up his form incredibly since last year, has been playing very well, very consistently, has been one of the better players for Sentinels. Actually, well, all of Sentinels have been playing really quite well, but just in general, Saucy's gameplay has been really well. I really like his Gecko. I think he has one of the best thrash movements in the game. Like, I see some people who have bad thrash movements, and like, let me tell you, Saucy got those B-hops down. So, you know, shout out to the bald. Number 2, I have Something. Now, this is going to be kind of weird. Again, I said these rankings are going to be a little weird, but Something actually has more rounds playing Gecko than he does playing Jet. And that's why I put Munyet as the main duelist and not Something, because he has been flexing a lot. Overall, Something's Gecko has looked really good. Talk about B-hops. His thrash control is very good. And, you know, he also continues to put up incredible numbers regardless of the role. If you want to talk about his flex side to it, he's still one of the best Jet players out there. He's one of the best operators in the world. So overall, just because of those secondary pedigrees and his very good transition to playing Gecko, he did play it at AVL last year in the offseason. But nonetheless, I still think Something is incredible. And at number 1, we have Narrate. So Narrate, of course, has most of his rounds played on Gecko and Fade. That's why he falls into the Initiator category for me. And this kid has just been absolutely absurd. Incredible game sense, very intelligent, great aim, one of the best Gecko players out there. He really has taken a Gecko, like the top 3 for sure. Their Gecko and their thrash usage is just incredible, and I think that kind of what shows and stands out. Speaking of unique agents, one of the things I wanted to point out for the Duelist is that if you have a good Yoru player, they kind of make the difference. For example, if you want to purely rate Yoru, I think Martine's Yoru is absolutely freaking absurd. Mini Boo's Yoru is also very good. Tens plays Yoru very well. But I think teams who have good Yoru players are seeing good success against teams who don't have good Yoru players, because teams who don't have good Yoru players don't know how to play against it, versus if they do have a good Yoru player, they know how to play against it. So that's one of the developments in the meta that I think we've been able to see that isn't necessarily reflective within the Duelist and Flex thing, but that's just because the game has changed and there's no more singular defined roles anymore, which I really enjoy. Going on to the Sentinel / anchor position, this is the Viper players as well. I have in number 8 Lysor. Lysor to me is probably FPX's weakest link right now. He can definitely frag, but he's been hit or miss, very streaky recently. And with Viper being such an important agent in the meta, you can't have a weaker player on her, and unfortunately Lysor has been a little bit of a weaker player on her. So for me, he ranks as the weakest player in this category. At number 7, I don't want to put him down here this low, but there's just such big competition in this category. I have Tamazi. Tamazi has not been putting up incredible numbers comparatively to his fellow rookies on his team, but his transition to playing Viper and being so good at that role has been so key to Karmine Corp's success. The reason why they've been able to anchor certain sites or be able to just leave someone on an island and go pack together for their retakes has been the anchoring of Tamazi. He has not been putting up crazy numbers, don't get me wrong, part of the rankings is numbers and whatnot, but he is very talented and is an underrated piece as to why Karmine Corp is so good. At number 6, we have Meteor. So Meteor has taken the transition to the Sentinel role quite well. He's actually been putting up very good numbers. Between him and Charon, they're the second best player of Gen G in my opinion, and overall I just think that he's done very well. He's playing consistently. He's allowed to use the Outlaw and Opping on Sentinel, which has given Gen G another dynamic to their game, and I think he's been pretty solid. At number 5, we have John QT of Sentinels. So John QT is a very good Sentinel player. He has swapped off between playing traditional Sentinels and playing Viper for the squad, depending on the map that they need him to. But overall, I just think his play is very good. He is a very intelligent player. He can frag with the best of them. And although his team may not always need his firepower, just having an IGL that can shoot back is very important. So I give him 5th. In 4th place, I have Benji Fishy. So Benji has actually very much impressed me since kickoff began. I didn't think he was super great last year, but obviously he only had so little time playing Valorant and transitioning to the game. But now that he has been in the game for a while, his skill is finally translating, and he is showing the world as to why he was a champion in Fortnite, because his aim is absurd. This guy is clicking heads like no other. He's a great anchor. He's been able to hold it down while Team Heretics play their chaotic style, and he just plays lurks and just holds their back. He's a very good player, and he's definitely someone to keep an eye out for. At number 3, I have my boy Chichu. For me, I think Chichu is just so good on the Viper role that without him, EDG just can't work. And I just think about just how important Chichu is to the EDG system as a whole, and how he anchors and how he plays. He's just so good, and he's just so smart playing around his smokes and whatnot that I just gotta rate him super high. So I put Chichu at 3rd. Number 2, I put Devi. Very similar to Chichu. He is an incredible anchor player. He pulls rounds out of his ass. He's great at Viper and has really taken to that role and has always consistently played it throughout his career. He is just really good, and just I don't know what else to say. It's Devi, baby. And last but not least, a surprise to no one, it is Les. I think Les is the best player in the world. Kind of spoilers right there, but he's the best Sentinel player in the world. The fact that he is so good at playing Viper that his entire team has crafted their entire map pool around him and able to play Viper consistently on every single map and have a consistent game plan around that. I mean, that just kind of enough said, right? That should really give you vibes of like Optic Yay being set up on Chamber and whatnot. But Les doesn't necessarily need to be set up like a Chamber necessarily would, because he's able to lurk, he's able to anchor, he's able to entry. Just Les is absolutely absurd. His aim is beautiful to watch. It's number 1 for a reason. And finally, the final role controllers to wrap up this tier list. At number 8, unfortunately, is my boy Haldong. Haldong has not been performing great at all. His calls have been pretty solid and decent, but in terms of fragging, shooting back, playing the game and whatnot, he has not been doing that great. His utility is still solid as usual, but in terms of fragging, he might be the weakest one on this list currently. At number 7, I have Shin from Karming Core. Shin is super underrated, in my opinion. I think with all the hype around the rookies on Karming Core, of course, Shin gets kind of overlooked a little bit, but my man can pull out multi-kills like it's nothing. He had an ace clutch against Team Heretics on Split in the grand finals. Like, this guy is just absurd. Shin is extremely talented, has had a really good comeback coming back to the controller role this year, and I'm super happy that Karming Core kept him. In 6th place, I have Berlin. So Berlin, I think, just plays controllers more unique, and that falls into the FPX unique playstyle. I think he's just a good controller player. His utility is very, very important as to why his team's able to take sites. And yeah, I just think Berlin's really solid. So, you know, I give him 6th place. In 5th place, I have Boo. So Boo was lighting up the world at the beginning of kickoff. Like, I think Mini Boo is number 1 and Boo is number 2 in like all their stats, and they were absolutely rolling people with a Latvian brother duo. But I just don't think that type of level is super sustainable, especially if things kind of go wrong. Say you come up against a wall, like for example in the grand finals, where after they lost that first map, so the map score is 1-1, Team Heretics kind of just fell apart a little bit and weren't as organized and whatnot. So Boo is definitely a good shooter, great utility usage. Team Heretics play like a pack together with absolute chaos, and he's kind of the head of the snake for that, right? So he gets a 5th place for me. Going on to number 4, I have Tens. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, this is purely on his Omen gameplay. I love his Omen gameplay. I love what he's been doing. His quick decisions and smokes and playing around the smokes is very, very intelligent. The way that his team has formulated game plans around using the paranoia on retakes and takes is super good, and his usage of that utility is very good. And he's also not afraid to just go in and pull a red guard, you know, teleport in. But you know what, he does it in tandem well with JKon to support him. So overall, I think his Omen's quite solid, and he ranks 4th amongst the controllers. Right? 3rd on my list, I have Mindfreak. Now, my boy Ron looked absolutely terrible on the Sova, so we're gonna disregard those Sova games. But when he went back to Omen and Viper, oh baby Prime Mindfreak is back. Clutches, 1v3s, 1v2s, 1v4s, you ask it, he does it. Mindfreak is the rock solid foundation for Paper Rex. Yes, he has Divide to help back him up in that foundation, but my boy Ron, shout out to him. I hope he can continue to keep up his good form, and I hope Paper Rex kind of figure out their roles a little bit. The Divide, Omen, Mindfreak, Viper was kind of an interesting swap, but nonetheless, I still love my boy Ron. 3rd place. Now, this one might be kind of questionable between the two, and I actually went back on so long to debate the two. But at number 2, I have JKon. And number 1, I have Tuiz. So the reason why I decided to go with Tuiz number 1 over JKon is that although JKon has been lighting up the world, been super consistent as a rookie, been arguably Genji's 2nd best player throughout the year so far, I just think Tuiz is so good. And his advanced stats, I know that's gonna sound weird, all the NBA like homies who hate advanced stats are gonna hate me, but his advanced stats are just so freaking good. And just the way Tuiz, like, he has a gap on so many of these players in assists. Like, Tuiz's assists that he gets not only from his utility but from his smokes and just positioning of where he puts his smokes and whatnot causes so many problems for the enemy team. Like, when he uses his harbor to absolutely suffocate a site on Icebox and just holding down that line for forever and whatnot, right? It's absolutely absurd and disgusting, and I have to shout out Tuiz. I think he's the best controller player coming into this event. JKon could easily be argued as number 1, but for me, I think Tuiz has the experience. He has proven it in the past, and I just think his numbers, they're very close, but I think his advanced numbers just beat out JKon's, and I think he's the best controller player coming into the event. And there you go. This is my tier list for every single player coming into Masters Madrid, ranked by their role. Let me know down below in the comments who you have ranked and where you would place them in the rankings. Did I rank some players too low? Am I overrating some of them? Am I underrating some of them? Let me know. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And until next time, stay hydrated. Peace. Do you really want to know? Do you really want to show? Do you really want to go? Oh, you left me in the dust. Where I stuck by. You're a sunflower. You're a sunflower.